The research ship Meridian drifted silently above the dead planet Kepler 442b. Dr. Lisa Chang pressed her face against the observation window and stared down at the brown and gray surface below. No life had walked on that world for thousands of years, but the ruins of ancient cities still dotted the landscape like old scars. Another day, another dead civilization, muttered Captain Jake Morrison as he joined her at the window. His weathered face showed the tiredness of a man who had seen too many empty worlds. What makes this one special? Lisa pulled up the survey data on her tablet. The energy readings are off the charts. Whatever they built down there, it's still running after all this time. The scanners are picking up massive power sources buried deep underground. Behind them, Chief Science Officer Amy Rodriguez was busy coordinating the landing teams. Her voice carried across the bridge as she spoke, into her headset. Team Alpha, you're going to the northern ruins. Team Beta takes the southern complex. And remember, we're looking for anything that might explain what happened to the Zephyrian Collective. The Zephyrian Collective had been one of the most powerful civilizations in known space. Their technology was so advanced that humans were still trying to understand devices they had left behind on other worlds. But 12,000 years ago, they had simply vanished. No war, no natural disaster, no explanation. One day they were there, the next day they were gone. Dr. Kevin Walsh, the team's linguist, looked up from his translation computer. Captain, I've been studying the inscriptions we found yesterday. The Zephyrians were definitely running from something. The last messages we decoded all talk about a great disruption that changed everything. Disruption from what? Jake asked. Kevin shrugged. That's what we're here to find out. 2 hours later, Lisa found herself rappelling down into the depths of what had once been the planet's greatest library. Her helmet lights cut through the darkness as she descended into a vast underground chamber. The walls were covered with strange symbols that seemed to glow faintly in the artificial light. This place is huge, she whispered into her radio. I'm seeing storage units that stretch back for kilometers. How much information did these people have? Amy's voice crackled back through the static. According to our scans, enough to fill every computer on Earth about 1,000 times over. Be careful down there, Lisa. Some of those power readings are coming from your area. Lisa's boots touched the floor of the chamber. All around her, massive crystalline structures hummed with quiet energy. Each one was the size of a small building and contained information about extinct civilizations that humans had never even heard of. The Zephyrians had been collectors of knowledge, gathering the history and culture of every species they encountered. She approached the nearest crystal and touched its surface. Immediately, holographic displays sprang to life around her. Text in dozens of different alien languages scrolled past her eyes. Pictures of strange creatures and impossible cities flickered in the air. Kevin, I need you down here, she called. I think I found their main database. Kevin's boots echoed in the chamber as he rappelled down 20 minutes later. His eyes went wide when he saw the displays. This is incredible. They cataloged everything. Look at this. Behavioral guides for over 200 different species. Trade protocols, cultural warnings, survival tips. This is like having a manual for the entire galaxy. Lisa watched the information scroll past. Each entry was detailed and complete. The Vorthak were crystalline beings who communicated through light patterns. The Nimari lived in gas clouds and considered solid matter to be evil. The Keltorians were warriors who settled disputes through ritualized combat involving musical instruments. Wait, Kevin said suddenly. He had stopped the display and was staring at one particular entry. This is strange. Lisa moved closer to. Look, between entries for Xerians and Zelthorians was something that made no sense. It was a page with only a title at the top. The rest was completely blank. What does the title say? Lisa asked. Kevin ran the text through his translator. His face went pale. It says what not to do around humans. Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. That's impossible. Humans didn't even have space travel 12,000 years ago. We were still living in caves and hunting with spears. I know, Kevin said quietly. But look at this. He manipulated the display to show more information about the entry. The quantum dating shows this was created at the same time as all the other entries. And look here, the title exists in 43 different alien languages. All of them translate to exactly the same thing. Amy's voice came through their radios. What are you two looking at down there? Your bio readings just spiked. Amy, you need to see this, Lisa said. We found something that shouldn't exist. While they waited for Amy to join them, Kevin continued examining the blank page. There's something else weird about this. The page isn't actually empty. I'm detecting faint quantum impressions like something was written here and then erased, multiple times. Can you recover any of it? Maybe, but it's going to take time and some serious computing power. Amy arrived 10 minutes later with 2 technicians carrying portable scanners. When she saw the blank page, she whistled softly. Well, that's not something you see every day. A spacefaring civilization that knew about humans before humans knew about space. One of the technicians, a young man named Pete Johnson, was running detailed scans of the page. Ma'am, these quantum impressions go deep. Whatever was written here, someone really wanted it gone. But they also wanted to preserve the fact that something had been written. It's like they couldn't decide whether to destroy the information or keep it. Lisa stared at the blank page floating in the air before them. Why would an advanced alien civilization have a page about humans that they deliberately left empty? What were they trying to hide? Or maybe, Amy said thoughtfully, the question is, what were they trying to protect us from? If they went to the trouble of cataloging every other species they knew, why leave us out? Kevin had connected his equipment to the crystal and was running deeper scans. I'm picking up more entries about humans scattered throughout the database, but they're all locked behind quantum encryption. The only thing accessible is this blank page. How long to break the encryption? Jake asked through the radio. He had been listening to their conversation from the ship. Could be days, could be weeks. This is technology we barely understand. Lisa walked around the chamber looking at the other displays. Every other species had detailed entries with warnings, advice, and cultural information. But for humans, there was only emptiness. It was as if the Zephyrians had encountered something so dangerous or so incomprehensible that they couldn't even write it down. Captain, she said into her radio, I think we're going to need more time down here. Whatever happened to the Zephyrians, I have a feeling it had something to do with us. And I don't think that's a coincidence. The blank page continued to hover in the air, its emptiness somehow more ominous than any warning could have been. Somewhere, in that quantum void lay the answer to one of the galaxy's greatest mysteries. And Lisa was beginning to suspect that humanity might not like what they found. 12,000 years earlier, Commander Steve Parker stood on the bridge of the Liberty and watched the alien ship approach. It was massive, easily 10 times the size of his own vessel, and shaped like a crystal flower with dozens of gleaming petals. The other 2 ships in his small fleet, the Endeavour and the Courage, maintained formation behind him. First contact protocol is in effect, Steve announced to his crew. Remember, we represent all of humanity today. Let's try not to embarrass our species. Communications Officer Laura Bennett laughed from her station. No promises, sir. You know how we humans are. The alien ship had appeared 3 days ago near Proxima Centauri, broadcasting mathematical sequences that clearly indicated intelligence. Earth's first interstellar expedition had been exploring the system when the encounter happened. Now, after careful exchanges of basic information, both sides had agreed to meet. Incoming transmission, Laura reported. They're using the visual communication method we established. The main screen flickered to life, showing a tall, elegant being with pale blue skin and large, dark eyes. Its movements were graceful and precise, like a dancer performing an ancient routine. When it spoke, the translation computer rendered its words in clear English. Greetings, beings of the third planet. I am Ambassador Zethkar of the Zephyrian Collective. We welcome you to the greater community of spacefaring civilizations. Steve stepped forward. I'm Commander Steve Parker, representing the people of Earth. We're honored to meet you. The honor is mutual, Zethkar replied. We have cataloged over 200 species in our travels. Each first contact follows certain patterns, certain traditions. We look forward to understanding your place in the cosmic order. Sounds good to us, Steve said. What do we do first? We shall perform the ritual of shared essence, Zethkar explained. It is how all civilized beings begin their relationship. We exchange genetic material to show trust and create a bond between our peoples. Steve blinked. Genetic material? Like our DNA? Precisely. It is the most sacred act of first contact, representing the willingness to share one's very being with another species. Behind Steve, Laura was already reaching into her backpack. Oh, I've got something even better, she said cheerfully. She pulled out a wrapped sandwich and held it up to the screen. I made this myself this morning. Ham and cheese. Want to try it? The bridge of the Liberty fell silent. On the screen, Ambassador Zethkar's large eyes blinked slowly. Several other Zephyrians appeared behind him, whispering in urgent tones. You wish to, share your food preparation? Zethkar asked. Sure. Food's how we show friendship where I come from, Laura said. My grandmother always said you can tell a lot about people by what they're willing to share from their lunchbox. Steve cleared his throat. What she means is, humans often share meals as a bonding ritual. It's how we build trust. The whispering among the Zephyrians grew louder. Finally, Zethkar spoke again. This is unexpected. In our experience, all species either exchange genetic essence or engage in combat trials. None have ever offered lunch. Well, there's a first time for everything, Laura said brightly. 3 hours later, the cultural exchange was going even worse. The Zephyrians had attempted to educate the humans about galactic law, starting with basic safety regulations. Chief Engineer Rick Thompson was supposed to be taking notes, but instead he was staring at a piece of Zephyrian technology with intense curiosity. This power coupling is fascinating, Rick said, interrupting a lecture about forbidden zones of space. But wouldn't it work better if you reversed the polarity on the secondary manifold? The Zephyrian engineer, a being called Tech Coordinator Vashitel, looked puzzled. Reverse the polarity? This device has functioned perfectly for over 3,000 years. It requires no improvement. Maybe not improvement, Rick said, but I bet we could make it more efficient. He was already pulling tools from his kit. Mind if I take a look? Rick, no, Steve warned, but it was too late. The engineer was already tinkering with alien technology that was older than human civilization. This should just take a second, Rick muttered, his tongue poking out in concentration. Sparks flew as he rewired something deep in the device. There, try it now. Vashtel activated the device. Immediately, it began humming at a much higher frequency. The energy output readings on both ships spiked dramatically. Impossible, Vashtel whispered. You have increased efficiency by 37%. This technology is beyond your understanding. How did you do this? Rick shrugged. Sometimes things just need a little adjustment, you know? Fresh eyes and all that. On the Zephyrian, ship emergency meetings were being called. Captain Danny Foster was making things worse by asking questions about everything the Zephyrians told him not to do. So, you're saying no one has ever explored the Omega Nebula? Danny asked during a briefing about galactic hazards. Correct, Zethkar replied. It has destroyed every ship that has attempted passage. The gravitational anomalies are beyond comprehension. But has anyone tried going around the edges? Or maybe using a different kind of shield configuration? Captain Foster, you do not understand. The Omega Nebula is death itself. 43 expeditions have been lost trying to map its borders. Danny's eyes lit up. 43? That's a lot of data points. I bet if we analyze their approach vectors, we could figure out a safe path through. Through? Zethkar's voice rose in pitch. Captain, the nebula is forbidden for good reason. Yeah, but forbidden usually just means nobody's figured out the right way to do it yet, Danny said with a grin. Meanwhile, Dr. Zara Chen, the collective's leading expert on alien psychology, was frantically taking notes. She had been assigned to study human behavior and create the standard advisory entry for the archives. But nothing the humans did made sense according to any established xenological principles. They showed no clear hierarchy, yet followed orders. They displayed remarkable empathy toward their enemies, yet were clearly capable of violence. They treated advanced technology like puzzle toys and mortal danger like interesting challenges. "Ambassador," Dr. Chen said during a private moment with Zethkar, "I cannot categorize these beings. They defy every principle of galactic psychology." "What do you mean?" Zethkar asked. "Watch them," she said, pointing to the human crew on the view screen. "They are simultaneously the most irrational and most effective beings I have ever studied." When we warned them about the plasma storms near Rigel, their first question was whether the storms were pretty. When we explained our military traditions, they asked if we had ever considered using music as a weapon. Music as a weapon? Apparently their species has a concept called psychological warfare that involves confusing enemies through unexpected actions. They suggested we could win battles by playing the wrong songs at the right time. Zethkar rubbed his temples. "Dr. Chen, please tell me you have enough information to write their archive entry." Dr. Chen looked at her notes. Pages and pages of observations that contradicted each other. Humans who cried at the beauty of stars while casually discussing the physics of planetary destruction. A species that had achieved faster than light travel not through careful scientific advancement, but because someone had wondered what would happen if they tried something that should have been impossible. "Ambassador," she said quietly, "I do not think these beings can be documented. Every time I write down what they will do, they do something else entirely." On the Liberty, Steve was wrapping up the first day of contact. "Well, this has been great," he told Zethkar. "Same time tomorrow?" "Yes," Zethkar replied, though he sounded uncertain. "Commander Parker, may I ask you something?" "Sure. Your species. Do you always approach the unknown with such enthusiasm?" Steve thought about it. "I guess so. I mean, unknown just means we haven't figured it out yet, right? That's the fun part." After the transmission ended, Zethkar sat in his command chair and stared at the stars. In 200 first contacts, he had never encountered anything like humanity. They were a paradox wrapped in an impossibility, and tomorrow he would have to deal with them again. On the Liberty, Laura was already planning the next day's cultural exchange. "Hey, Steve," she called. "Think they'd like to try pizza?" Dr. Zara Chen sat in her laboratory aboard the Zephyrian research vessel, staring at 3 months of notes about human behavior. The pages were covered with observations, theories, and crossed-out conclusions. Every time she thought she understood, these strange beings, they did something that made her start over. "Computer, begin recording," she said. "Personal log, Dr. Zara Chen, day 97 of human observation." She paused, trying to find words for what she had witnessed. The humans continued to defy all established principles of xenopsychology. Today, their pilot Nancy Brooks crash-landed on Theta Majoris 7 during a routine scouting mission. Protocol dictated that we mount a rescue operation immediately. Zara pulled up the video files from the mission. However, when we arrived, we found Pilot Brooks riding one of the planet's apex predators into battle against our rescue team. She had apparently befriended a pack of creatures that our database classified as extremely hostile and was defending them from what she perceived as an invasion. The video showed Nancy Brooks sitting on the back of a massive six-legged beast with razor-sharp claws, waving her arms and shouting at the Zephyrian rescue ships. Behind her, a dozen of the planet's most dangerous predators growled protectively. She later explained that the creatures were just misunderstood and that our approach had scared her new friends. When we informed her that these beings had killed 17 previous expedition members, she asked if we had tried talking to them nicely first. Zara switched to another file. The humans' approach to trade negotiations is equally baffling. Yesterday, diplomat Gary Lewis concluded a mineral rights agreement with the Keltorian Mining Consortium. Instead of demanding maximum profit as any rational species would do, he gave away 60% of the mining rights because the Keltorian negotiator mentioned that his child needed surgery. The recording showed Gary shaking hands with a tall, insect-like alien while signing documents. When questioned about this decision, Lewis stated that some things are more important than money. This concept appears frequently in human culture, though it makes no economic sense. Zara rubbed her tired eyes. 3 months of constant observation had left her exhausted and confused. Every human interaction revealed new contradictions. They were capable of remarkable kindness and shocking violence, often within the same conversation. The human's relationship with danger is perhaps their most disturbing characteristic, she continued. When Dr. Helen Wright was informed that the Forbidden Sector contained automated defense systems that had killed thousands of explorers, her immediate response was to ask for a more detailed map of the area. She pulled up Wright's personnel file. Dr. Wright then spent 2 weeks developing what she called safety protocols for entering the Forbidden Sector. These protocols consisted primarily of try not to die and bring extra coffee. When asked why she wanted to explore a region that guaranteed death, she replied that someone has to figure out how those defense systems work. A communication alert interrupted her recording. Ambassador Zethkar appeared on her screen, looking even more tired than she felt. Dr. Chen, I need your preliminary report on human psychological patterns. The Council is demanding answers. Zara gestured helplessly at her notes. Ambassador, I cannot provide a coherent analysis. The humans contradict themselves constantly. They are simultaneously the most empathetic and most dangerous species I have ever studied. Explain. This morning, Captain Danny Foster rescued a Keltorian mining crew from a solar flare, risking his ship and crew to save beings his species had never met before. This afternoon, the same captain defeated a Vindari war fleet using tactics that our military strategists are calling impossible and probably illegal in several star systems. Zethkar leaned forward. How did he defeat the Vindari? They are renowned warriors. He convinced them to surrender by playing what humans call music at volumes that cause structural damage to their ships. When the Vindari demanded to know what weapon he was using, Foster replied that it was death metal, and that they probably wouldn't understand the artistic statement. Death metal? Apparently it is a form of human entertainment that simulates the experience of being consumed by monsters. The Vindari found it so disturbing that they retreated rather than continue fighting. Zethkar was quiet for a long moment. Dr. Chen, the Council wants to know how to predict human behavior. What should we expect from them in future encounters? Zara laughed, but there was no humor in it. Ambassador, asking me to predict human behavior is like asking me to predict which direction a quantum particle will spin. The act of observation changes the outcome. What do you mean? Watch this. Zara pulled up a recording from the previous day. I told engineer Rick Thompson that our warp drive was functioning at maximum efficiency and could not be improved. I made this statement while observing his reaction for my psychological profile. The video showed Rick's eyes lighting up with interest. He immediately asked to examine our drive systems. I granted permission, thinking it would provide useful data about human curiosity. And he improved our efficiency by 18% in 4 hours. When I asked how, he said that watching me try to convince him it was impossible had given him ideas about what to try differently. Zethkar stared at her. Are you saying that humans become more capable when you tell them something cannot be done? It appears so. The more impossible a task seems, the more determined they become to accomplish it. It is as if they view the laws of physics as suggestions rather than absolute rules. Zara brought up more files. Their cultural practices are equally confusing. They have something called sarcasm, where they say the opposite of what they mean as a form of humor. They also engage in practical jokes, where they deliberately cause minor inconvenience to people they care about. Why would they harm those they care about? According to my interviews, it is a way of showing affection. The more elaborate the practical joke, the stronger the friendship. Yesterday, pilot Nancy Brooks reprogrammed the food replicator in Captain Foster's quarters to only produce meals shaped like tiny alien creatures. Foster responded by filling her shower with biodegradable glitter. This escalated into what they called a prank war that lasted 3 days and involved the entire crew. By the end, their ship was barely functional, but morale had somehow increased by 40%. Zethkar rubbed his temples. Dr. Chen, I need something to tell the council. Some pattern, some prediction, anything. Zara looked at her notes again. Months of careful observation had produced nothing but contradictions and impossibilities. Ambassador, there is one pattern I have observed. What is it? The humans are most dangerous when they are trying to help. Every time they have caused significant disruption to galactic affairs, it has been in the process of solving someone else's problem. She pulled up a summary chart. They ended the Rigel trade war by convincing both sides to compete in what they called a baking contest. They resolved the Centauri border dispute by teaching the opposing fleets to play something called basketball. They stopped a planetary famine by introducing Earth plants that grew in conditions everyone had assumed were impossible for agriculture. These all sound like positive outcomes. They are. That is what makes them so terrifying. The humans solve problems that have existed for centuries, using methods that violate established scientific principles. They succeed by refusing to accept that success is impossible. Zethkar was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke. Dr. Chen, for your archive entry, what would you recommend other species do when encountering humans? Zara stared at her screens, full of contradictory data. 3 months of the most intensive psychological study in collective history, and she had no useful conclusions to offer. Honestly, Ambassador, I would recommend that they pray to whatever gods they believe in and hope the humans are in a good mood. She ended the recording and began writing her report. After an hour of failed attempts, she realized that every sentence she wrote about humans was immediately contradicted by her next observation. Finally, she deleted everything and stared at the blank page on her screen. Some truths, she realized, were simply too complex for documentation. The emergency session of the Zephyrian Council was unlike any in their 10,000-year history. Ambassador Zethkar stood before the assembled leaders of 200 worlds, delivering news that should have meant the end of galactic civilization. The Void Reapers have awakened, he announced, his voice echoing in the vast chamber. 3 star systems have already been sterilized. Our greatest fleets have proven useless against their technology. Council leader Vashmore, ancient even by Zephyrian standards, leaned forward in his crystalline chair. How long do our analysts estimate we have before they reach the core worlds? 6 months, possibly less. The Reapers are moving faster than predicted. They adapt to every weapon we use against them. Murmurs of despair rippled through the council chamber. The Void Reapers were automated war machines left behind by a civilization that had died out 50,000 years ago. They had been dormant in the deepest regions of space until something had triggered their activation protocols. There is more, Zethkar continued. The Planar Syndicate has chosen this moment to launch their invasion. They believe our forces are too divided to resist both threats simultaneously. The Planar Syndicate was everything the Collective was not. Where the Zephyrians sought knowledge and peace, the Syndicate valued only conquest and profit. Their fleets had been gathering at the edge of collective space for months, waiting for the right moment to strike. What of our allies? Asked another council member. The Keltorians are falling back to defend their homeworlds. The Nimari have retreated into the gas clouds. We stand alone against both enemies. Council leader Vashmore stood slowly. Then we prepare for the end with dignity. Alert all citizens to begin the final evacuation protocols. Wait, Zethkar said. There is one more option. The humans have volunteered to help. The council chamber fell silent. Then, someone began to laugh. The laughter spread until half the chamber was filled with the sound of bitter amusement. Humans, Vashmore asked. The species with 3 ships and no understanding of galactic warfare. What exactly do they propose to do? Admiral Ben Harrison has requested permission to engage both enemy fleets simultaneously. The laughter stopped. Simultaneously? Does he understand that we are discussing the 2 most powerful military forces in known space? I informed him of this fact. His response was to ask if we had any good coffee available because he would need to stay awake for several days to plan the operation. Dr. Zara Chen, who had been sitting quietly in the observer section, stood up. Council leader, I must speak. Dr. Chen, this is not the time for psychological analysis. With respect, sir, it is exactly the time. I have spent months studying these beings. I believe Admiral Harrison may actually have a plan. Based on what evidence? Based on the fact that humans become more effective when facing impossible odds. They do not calculate probability the way we do. Where we see certain death, they see an interesting problem to solve. Vashmore considered this. Even if this is true, what can 3 human ships accomplish against thousands of enemy vessels? I do not know, Zara admitted. But I am beginning to suspect that not knowing is exactly what makes them dangerous. 3 days later, Admiral Ben Harrison sat in the command chair of the small human fleet. His 27 ships were barely specks compared to the massive Void Reaper machines and Syndicate battlecruisers converging on the Arcturus system. Tactical analysis complete, Admiral, reported Captain Rachel Stone from the escort ship Defiance. We are outnumbered approximately 4,000 to 1. Sounds about right, Ben replied calmly. Lisa, what's the status on our special equipment? Chief Engineer Lisa Grant checked her readings. The musical transmission arrays are online, sir. The quantum confusion generators are charged and ready, and the philosophical debate protocols are loaded into the communication systems. Excellent. Rachel, deploy the ships according to Plan Omega. Sir, are you sure about this? Plan Omega violates about 30 different laws of physics. Only if you assume physics works the same way for everyone, Ben said with a grin. Remember, we're not trying to win a normal battle. We're trying to confuse 2 different enemies into defeating each other. The human ships scattered across the system in a pattern that made no tactical sense. They were too far apart to support each other, too small to pose any real threat, and positioned in locations that seemed completely random. The Void Reapers arrived first. Massive black ships that absorbed light itself, they began their systematic destruction of everything in the system. Their weapons could crack planets, and their shields had never been penetrated by any known technology. Void Reapers are targeting our position, reported Tactical Officer Mike Davis. They're charging their primary weapons. Perfect, Ben said. Open a communication channel and start playing the playlist Laura put together. The sound that emerged from the human ships was unlike anything heard in galactic warfare. It was chaotic, violent, and somehow beautiful at the same time. The Void Reapers, programmed to analyze and counter every known weapon, paused in confusion. What is this transmission? The lead Reaper demanded in its mechanical voice. It's called heavy metal, Ben replied. Specifically, it's a song about the meaninglessness of existence and the beauty of destruction. We thought you might relate to the philosophical implications. The Reapers had been programmed by a civilization that valued logic above all else. But this music contained mathematical patterns that seemed to celebrate chaos. Their artificial minds struggled to categorize it as either a weapon or communication. While the Reapers were distracted, the planar Syndicate fleet arrived. Their commander, General Krekstar, saw the human ships and dismissed them as irrelevant. His focus was on the Void Reapers. Destroy the machines first, he ordered. Then we will claim the collective worlds. The Syndicate ships opened fire on the Reapers with conventional weapons. The Reapers responded by analyzing the attacks and adapting their defenses. Within minutes, the Syndicate weapons were useless. Now, Rachel, Ben ordered. Captain Stone's ship suddenly appeared between the 2 fleets, broadcasting on all frequencies. Attention, planar Syndicate forces. We challenge your general to single combat according to ancient warrior traditions. General Krekstar laughed. You? Your ship is smaller than my personal shuttle. Not ship combat, Rachel explained. Musical combat. We will have a battle of songs. If we win, you leave collective space forever. If you win, we will surrender our ships. The challenge was broadcast across both fleets. The Syndicate warriors, who valued honor above practicality, could not refuse without losing face. General Krekstar agreed to the contest. What followed was the strangest battle in galactic history. Rachel's ship began playing something she called classical music, while the Syndicate responded with their traditional war chants. But the human music kept changing, incorporating elements of the alien songs and transforming them into something new. Meanwhile, the Void Reapers were becoming increasingly agitated by the ongoing musical chaos. Their logical minds could not process the artistic creation happening around them. They began firing randomly, trying to destroy the source of the confusion. Phase 2, Ben announced. Start the philosophical debate. Engineer Tony Miller opened a channel to the Void Reapers. Excuse me, but we've been analyzing your programming. Don't you think your purpose is kind of pointless? Explain, the lead Reaper demanded. Well, you're supposed to destroy all life to preserve order, right? But without life, there's no one to appreciate the order you create. It's like building a beautiful garden and then making sure no one can ever see it. The Reapers paused their attack. This was a logical paradox they had never encountered. Tony continued. Plus, if you destroy everything, what happens to you? Do you just float around empty space forever? That sounds pretty boring. For the first time in 50,000 years, the Void Reapers began to question their programming. While they wrestled with existential philosophy, the musical battle between humans and the Syndicate reached its climax. Rachel had somehow convinced the Syndicate fleet to join in a massive collaborative song that told the story of their greatest military victories. The aliens were so caught up in the artistic expression that they forgot they were supposed to be fighting. Admiral, Captain Stone reported, both enemy fleets have stopped attacking. The Reapers are having some kind of logical crisis, and the Syndicate is asking if we want to start a touring musical group. Ben smiled. Sometimes the best way to win a war is to convince everyone that there are more interesting things to do than fight. The impossible victory was complete. Two unstoppable forces had been defeated not through superior firepower, but through confusion, philosophy, and really good music. In the aftermath, as diplomats worked out peace treaties, and the Reapers requested permission to study human art, Dr. Zara Chen updated her notes one final time. Note to self, she wrote. Never try to predict what humans will do in a crisis. They do not solve problems. They convince problems to solve themselves. Back in the present day, Dr. Lisa Chang stared at the quantum analysis results with growing excitement. After 2 weeks of careful work, her team had finally broken through the encryption surrounding the blank page in the Zephyrian archives. Kevin, you need to see this, she called to the linguist who was working at another station in the underground chamber. Dr. Kevin Walsh hurried over, his equipment beeping softly as it maintained the connection to the ancient crystal database. What? Did you find? The page isn't blank, Lisa said, pointing at her scanner readings. It's layered. There are dozens of different attempts to write something, all stacked on top of each other in quantum space. Amy Rodriguez joined them, having just returned from cataloging artifacts in another section of the ruins. Can you separate the layers? See what they actually tried to write? Lisa nodded and began working her controls. Dr. Tony Miller's quantum archaeology equipment can reconstruct the original text patterns. It's going to take some time, but we should be able to read every attempt they made. The first layer materialized slowly on their display screens. The text was an ancient Zephyrian script, and Kevin's translator began working immediately. This is from Dr. Zara Chen, Kevin said, reading the translation. It says, humans cannot be reasoned with using conventional logic. They approach problems from directions that should not exist. Recommend extreme caution when... And then it stops. Why did she stop writing? Amy asked. Lisa brought up the next layer. Because she tried again. Look at this. The second attempt was longer but equally incomplete. Humans display unpredictable behavior patterns that defy all established xenopsychological principles. They are simultaneously empathetic and ruthless, logical and chaotic. When encountering humans, species should prepare for... And she stopped. Again, Amy observed. They worked through layer after layer of abandoned attempts. Each one started confidently but dissolved into uncertainty and confusion. The deeper they went, the more desperate the attempts became. Here's one that's just a single word repeated over and over, Kevin said. Impossible, impossible, impossible. She wrote it thousands of times. And here's another attempt, Lisa added. Warning, humans view impossible situations as entertainment. They will attempt to solve problems that have no solutions. They will succeed at things that should not work. Do not try to predict their actions because... And it trails off again. Tony Miller emerged from behind a bank of scanning equipment, his face pale. I've been analyzing the quantum signatures of these deletions. Each attempt wasn't just erased, it was carefully removed and stored separately. Dr. Chen wanted to preserve the fact that she had tried to write something, even though she couldn't complete it. Why would she do that? Amy asked. Because she was a scientist, Lisa realized. She was documenting her own failure to document humanity. The blank page isn't a mistake, it's data. They continued reconstructing the layers. Some attempts were clinical and scientific, others were personal and emotional. One layer contained what appeared to be poetry about the impossibility of understanding chaos. Another was a mathematical equation that tried to calculate human unpredictability and concluded with the symbol for infinity. Look at this one, Kevin said, pointing to a layer near the bottom of the stack. It's from Ambassador Zethkar himself. The text was brief but telling. I have observed humans for 6 months. They have ended 2 wars, improved our technology, befriended our enemies, and convinced our artificial intelligence to take up painting as a hobby. I can find no pattern to their behavior, except that they have no pattern. How do you warn someone? About a force of nature? Force of nature, Amy repeated. That's how they saw us. Lisa discovered another layer, this one from a military analyst named Commander Velthar. Humans won the Battle of Arcturus by convincing both enemy fleets to stop fighting and start making music together. This sentence makes no sense, yet it is factually accurate. I recommend we declare humans a natural disaster and evacuate any system they visit. The deeper layers became increasingly desperate. One scientist had attempted to write the entry in mathematical formulas instead of words. Another had tried using pictures and symbols. A third had simply drawn question marks across the entire page. But it was the final layer, the deepest and oldest, that made them all fall silent. This is the last thing Dr. Zara Chen wrote, Kevin said quietly. It's dated just before the Zephyrians abandoned this world and disappeared. The text was simple and heartbreaking. I have spent years trying to categorize humanity. I have failed. They cannot be understood because understanding requires prediction, and they cannot be predicted because they change the rules by existing. The moment we write down what humans will do, they do something else entirely. The blank page is not our failure. It is the most accurate description possible. To document chaos, one must become chaos. To predict the unpredictable, one must abandon prediction. The page remains blank because the truth about humans cannot be written. It can only be experienced. May whatever species finds this archive understand what we could not. Some things are too large for words. The chamber fell silent except for the quiet humming of the ancient machines. Finally, Amy spoke. She left the page blank on purpose. It wasn't that she couldn't write about humans. It was that she realized writing about them was impossible. More than that, Lisa said, studying the quantum patterns. Look at these deletion signatures. Each time she erased something, she did it more carefully than the last time. She was learning that the act of trying to document humanity was changing her understanding of them. Tony looked up from his equipment. There's something else. I'm detecting quantum echoes that suggest this blank page exists in copies throughout the galaxy. Somehow the Zephyrians distributed the blank page to every archive and database in their network. They were warning everyone, Kevin realized. Not about what humans would do, but about the impossibility of predicting what humans would do. It's brilliant, Amy said with admiration. The blank page doesn't tell you to be afraid of humans or to welcome them. It tells you to throw away your preconceptions and deal with each situation as it comes. Lisa was already preparing to leave the chamber. We need to get this information back to Earth. Humanity needs to understand how other species see us. Wait, Tony said, pointing at his scanner. There's one more layer, something new. On the display, fresh text was appearing in what looked like human handwriting. The words formed slowly, as if someone was writing them in real time. Thanks for figuring it out. We always wondered why other species looked so confused when they met us. Now we know. You were expecting us to make sense. Sorry about that. We're working on it. Well, actually, no, we're not. Making sense is boring, but thanks for the blank page. It's the nicest thing anyone's ever said about us. Good luck with whatever you find next. Love, humanity. That's impossible, Kevin whispered. How can new text be appearing on a 12,000-year-old artifact? Amy smiled. Because we're dealing with humans. And the one thing we've learned is that humans don't let little things like the laws of physics stop them from saying thank you. As they packed up their equipment to return to the Meridian, Lisa took one last look at the blank page floating in the holographic display. The emptiness no longer seemed like a failure or a mystery. It seemed like wisdom. Some truths were too big for words. Some beings were too complex for categories. And sometimes, the most honest thing you could say about the unknown was nothing at all. The blank page would remain in the archives, a monument to the limits of understanding and the beauty of accepting those limits. And somewhere in the quantum static of ancient alien databases, a simple message continued to echo across the galaxy. Good luck. Captain Jake Morrison's voice crackled through their radios. Team, we've got company up here. 3 ships just dropped, out of hyperspace. They're broadcasting greetings in over 40 different languages. Zephyrian? Lisa asked. No. They're claiming to be the Galactic Welcome Committee. Apparently word got out that we found the archives and everyone wants to meet the species that got a blank page. Amy laughed. I guess we're about to find out what happens when the whole galaxy knows you can't be predicted. As they climbed back toward the surface, the blank page continued to glow softly in the darkness below, its emptiness full of infinite possibility.